What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome into my YouTube channel, Alu2 Productions. My name is Alex Liu. This is my personal YouTube channel where I am building a portfolio for my videography, video editing, production, content creation, and overall filmmaking career that I am working to transition to. I am just an average Kansas City Chiefs fan. I was born in Kansas City, but only lived there until I was 3, and then I moved to the East Coast and have been in the Mid-Atlantic Northeast region for the majority of my life. I am a lifelong Chiefs fan, and this is Win or Lose Chiefs News Podcast Edition. This started with a blog on my WordPress. I'll leave a link in the description of this video so you can check that out. I post weekly recapping each Chiefs game and then previewing, looking forward ahead to the next week's matchup. If you are like me and you are an out of Kansas City market Chiefs fan, I would love to hear from you. I definitely want to have a focus and a spin of this podcast's emphasis and focus in general be around those catering to those Chiefs fans who are also like me, and you might feel a little bit lonely out there at times. It's a lot different from being able to live in and around the Kansas City metro area or the surrounding Midwestern states. If you have stumbled across this podcast, if you're out there watching, listening, hopefully this can kind of help get you through your week. It is Wednesday, October 1st, hump day, so we're halfway through the week, and we are that much closer to the next Chiefs game where they are going to be in Jacksonville on Monday Night Football. Before I continue any further, I am based in Maryland, around the DC Metro, DMV area, and it's a nice sunny day. I've got my nice hot cup of tea, and we're just going to talk about the Chiefs for the next hour. Before we continue on any further with this video, please subscribe to my channel, leave a like, comment, share, and follow me on Instagram. I would greatly appreciate it. This week, we are here to talk about the Chiefs' Week 4 explosive win over the Baltimore Ravens. To help me with my blog post and podcasts, I actually have been using, I don't have AI do everything, but what I've been doing is, a lot of times this just comes from my head, and I will write a blog post and then kind of convert that blog post into like a podcast script or talking points. But something I did that I did during the Ravens game, and I almost forgot to do it. I started off the game, the first half, it didn't even cross my mind. It was something that I made a mental note I wanted to start doing. Oddly enough, I actually went to school, I went to college with the intention of majoring in, I majored in journalism, and I wanted to be a sports writer back when I was in high school, but I ended up not going that route. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but essentially some skills I took away from that was just like a reporter. During the Chiefs and Ravens game, what I actually did was, in this notebook, I actually was just jotting down some notes, which I will cover in today's podcast, just about kind of the basic positives and negatives, pros and cons list, if you will, about what I liked, some of the negatives that I would say most of this is still some things that we've been struggling with since the start of the season, and really probably even into last year and maybe even the year prior. But that way I could kind of come back to sitting down to write my blog and doing this podcast, and I kind of had some ideas to sort of work off of. I had AI kind of do this these talking points, and it generated an opening hook, and I find this actually funny to read. It says, "What's up, Chiefs Kingdom?" which I pretty much already said. "For those of us watching from outside KC, staying up late or finding sketchy streams to catch our guys, Week 4 finally gave us something to get excited about. The offense showed up against Baltimore, and I'm here for it." Funny thing about that, sketchy streams. As an out-of-town, out-of-market Chiefs fan, but also Kansas City fan in general, because I am a huge Royals fan, Kansas State Wildcats fan. But in terms of sketchy streams, I haven't used a sketchy stream in years, probably in like 10 years. I grew up watching the Chiefs probably once DirecTV came out with Sunday Ticket. I think I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, 4th grade, around there. And my dad would get Sunday Ticket, so I was able to watch pretty much all Chiefs games. And back in those years, the Chiefs were like never on prime time. I can recall like a Monday Night Football game against the Dolphins. I don't even remember what year that was, but they really weren't on prime time. These days, it's kind of the reverse. I also now have Sunday Ticket, but I hardly ever need it, so it's actually money wasted, and it it really frustrates me because the Chiefs are pretty much always on prime time this season alone so far. And I knew this going in, kind of like last year and probably the last couple of years. I'm not really going to need Sunday Ticket until probably like middle of the season, because week 1 on YouTube in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Week 2, I think, was on Fox, and that was the 4 o'clock, 4:15, 4:25 slotted hour. And then week 3 was Sunday Night Football on NBC. This past week against the Ravens, CBS, with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, whom I have come to really find irritating to listen to while I'm watching a Chiefs game. But I'll probably talk about that before the Chiefs play the Bills. That'll be a bit of a more fitting game and conversation to get into that a little bit more. And then week 5, we already know the Chiefs playing on Monday Night Football on ESPN. And then I think against the Lions, I believe that's also on Sunday Night Football. And then I will actually be, so I guess this would probably be the first game that they will be on Sunday Ticket for out-of-market fans, is the Raiders game. But I'm actually going to that game in person with my family. And I'm going to have a whole video on that. We are renting a camper van. We are going to be doing an entire half cross-country road trip. We're also going to stop to see one of my wife's college friends in Chicago. We're bringing our daughter. We're bringing our dog. We will have a nice vlogging road trip video of those travels, but also the game. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait. But anyway, I just thought that was funny because sketchy streams, I mean, I've pretty much always used Sunday Ticket. I think the only times when I didn't really use Sunday Ticket was when I was in college and I had no money, and I would honestly just go to like the local bar on campus or around campus and just watch. They would typically have like a ton of games, and I would have to try to find a seat, and they had Sunday Ticket in the bar, so I would try to catch Chiefs games that way. But I think out of college, when I wasn't paying for Sunday Ticket and the Chiefs were kind of in the early like 2010s, they were sort of like hit or miss and had some okay years, some not so good years. I wasn't paying for Sunday Ticket, so oftentimes I couldn't watch games, and I would try some sketchy streams that I would find online, but it was horrible. I would just rather pay the money. So I think it's funny that AI generated that, just with my motive of this being to kind of cater to out-of-market, out-of-town fans. That was a long opening spiel. The first 2 weeks of the season, I kind of mentioned it here and there, but the focus was really just on talking about the game, talking about a lot of the negatives, the struggles. But going forward and starting this week, I did want to kind of set the stage and just remind everyone, if they do stumble upon this podcast, if they find this video to be interesting, like that's kind of what I'm also here for, is win or lose Chiefs news is not just about like talking the Chiefs, but also finding a way to connect with fans who are like me. My sister-in-law actually just sent me a photo. She took a picture of a car in front of her in traffic that it's a Maryland license plate. It has a Kansas State Wildcats license plate frame, a border, and then has a K-State Alumni Association rear window sticker, and then Chiefs and K-State auto emblems, the same ones that I had on my old car. I'm always excited to see kind of stuff like that whenever I do come across Chiefs fans or Kansas City natives, Royals, K-State fans. I always feel inclined to try and go to talk to them, because it's really not every day you come across that, especially in Maryland, of all states. But I will say that around the DMV, it's not super uncommon, just because there are so many federal government workers, military personnel that come from all over the country. So you will come across some people who, are from the Midwest, Mid-America, the Kansas City area. I play men's beer league ice hockey, and I have a teammate who's from Nebraska, and he is a Chiefs fan. So I'll talk with him from time to time about the Chiefs. Before I dive any further into the game, I do just want to say this about being a Chiefs fan, living in Maryland, and especially considering the in-conference AFC rivalry the Chiefs have had with the Ravens. I'll stop myself right there and just say that some people would probably call me out right there and argue it's not even really a rivalry. And I would say, yes, you actually absolutely have a point. Reason being, now that I think about it, I think the stat going into last Sunday was the Ravens with Lamar Jackson against Mahomes and the Chiefs. The Ravens were like 1-5. So it's really not much of a rivalry. We beat them on the road in Baltimore in their house at M&T Bank Stadium in the AFC Championship in 2023. I think that's the only playoff matchup we've had in the Lamar Mahomes era. And the only time I can recall them beating us in that era was, I want to say 2022 in Baltimore. It was either like a Thursday, Sunday, or Monday night game. Yeah, that was the one and only time that Lamar and the Ravens have beaten the Chiefs. So it's really not much of a rivalry, but it's usually a very close and tough, grinded out kind of game when the Chiefs and Ravens play. So that's, I think, what most of us were anticipating, especially with the Chiefs starting off 1-2 and just the state of the team heading into week 4, given, Worthy's injury, Rice being suspended, a lot of the struggles on the offensive line, even just outside of missing Worthy and Rice. As a Chiefs fan in Maryland, one thing I do want to note is that while the Chiefs and Ravens do have, one of the more marquee matchups typically when it's on the schedule, and both teams have a lot of respect for each other. I have to say, living in Maryland, and I went to Towson University just north of Baltimore, and back then the Chiefs and Ravens didn't really have this kind of, rivalry, but I have to say that as a Chiefs fan in the state of Maryland, I don't really get a whole lot of crap from Ravens fans. I always say this, every fan base is going to have its, nice and not so nice fans. But overall, the Baltimore fan base, I can't really say that they're a bad fan base. Sometimes Ravens fans will say like, oh yeah, watch out Kansas City, we're coming for you, that kind of thing. But it's never anything like, there's never any like ill will. There's never any like true animosity. Of course, I think that Mahomes is easily a far better quarterback than Lamar Jackson, but Lamar, I, of course, also respect as very talented, very gifted, very athletic. He just hasn't, like Josh Allen, he just hasn't shown that he's able to get his team over that hump yet. I don't ever really experience any real like trash talk from people around here, and I still have friends from college who were born and raised in the state of Maryland and are diehard Ravens fans, and just no one ever really reaches out to me and talks trash. They just have a lot of respect for the Chiefs and everything we've been doing these last several years. So it's really not bad, I would say, as a Chiefs fan living in Maryland. And the reason I mention that is because I talked about this a little bit in my week 2 podcast, but as a Chiefs fan who also lived in the Philadelphia area, suburbs outside of Philly, so the greater Philadelphia area, as they say, and I went to middle school and high school there, and I was just at a friend's bachelor party, one that I went to high school with, and he had a lot of his Philly friends and just people from in and around that area, born and raised, and just they weren't really like mean about the Super Bowl, but they just I'll just never forget this. Some of them just kind of prided themselves on basically Philly fans like being assholes, and like they excuse being an asshole for their passion as a fan. I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to open up that can of worms because I could talk for days, weeks on end about how much I despise Philadelphia as a city, their fans, their people, the Eagles as a team, their entire organization. It's not just Eagles fans. I would say really all Philadelphia fans. And I've got plenty of friends still that live in the Philadelphia area that I went to school with that they're my friends. I am still friends with them, but most likely they're not going to see this. So I just don't really care. I'm just going to say it. And not that many people are really watching a lot of my videos, at least yet, on my YouTube channel. So I'm just going to speak freely and saying, like, I despise Philadelphia to this day. That is by far the worst fan base, city, and place on earth. I'll even go as far as to say I really don't even like the state of Pennsylvania. I can't stand Penn State. I can't stand Villanova. I grew up for the second half of my childhood right down the street from the campus. Screw Philly. That's my feeling. The Ravens fans, like, they are a walk in the park compared to Eagles fans. And the same thing goes for DC Commanders fans. The Chiefs and Commanders are going to be playing each other. Also a Monday Night Football game. That's later on in the season. I want to say that's after the Raiders game. Most of my wife's family, because they they were a military family, but they they ended up settling in the DMV in Maryland, not far from DC, years ago when my wife was in middle school. And so much of the family is Commanders fans, but they're not trash talkers. They're not bad fans. They're not bad sports about it. I'll just say that going into the Chiefs-Ravens game, like even if we were to have lost to them, I just wouldn't have the same kind of feeling, the same kind of rage inside of me as a fan as I do whenever the Chiefs and Eagles play. I mean, this is probably going to surprise a lot of Chiefs fans out there, and part of it is also because the Chiefs have just not had the same kind of meaningful rivalries with their own division rivals in the AFC West, including the Raiders, for years now. Like, I hated the Raiders, Broncos, and Chargers a lot more as a kid when they were usually beating up on us, or we were lucky to beat them at home, but then we could never beat them on the road. And those were back in the days when, like, the Chargers had Phillip Rivers, and I freaking hated Phillip Rivers. Since the Chiefs got really, really good over the last decade, and those AFC West division rivalry games just they're just not really what they used to be. For years now, I have hated the Eagles more than the rest of the AFC West. That isn't really easy for, I think, most Chiefs fans to understand, even given the fact that we've played the Eagles in 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls, and we've lost one of them in a horrible, horrible fashion with the blowout. I don't think many people from Kansas City can really understand unless you have stepped foot in Philadelphia, you've encountered Eagles fans, you'll know what I'm talking about. I'm going to pause that there because, like I said, that's a whole can of worms that I've already opened and I don't want to get into any further. So we're going to keep it moving. First topic I want to talk about is obviously the return of Xavier Worthy. Man, was it just amazing, an amazing feeling as a fan to have Worthy back. And I wrote about this even last week, previewing this game on my blog. I think because historically, Andy Reid and the coaching staff have shown somewhat of more of a conservative approach, cautious approach, if you will, to players coming back from injury. Even guys coming back, not coming back, even guys that the Chiefs have signed, they sometimes they can show sort of a slower like ramp up period. It really, any new addition, any draft pick, it's not just put them in there and full go, full speed. There's usually some ramp up period, and I think when it comes to like players that we acquire through like trades, or they're players that we draft and they're in their first season rookie year, like there is just kind of like that ramp up time where they have to, even after training camp, things like that, they have to get to know the scheme, the complex, I think, play design and style of like Andy Reid's offense or even Spags' defense. All that aside, I think just coming back from an injury, I had the feeling that, especially since Worthy actually started practicing even in limited fashion before the Giants game, and there was possibility for him to play in that game, and I was fully on board with them not having him suit up during that game because, at that point in the season, and even still now, it isn't really like desperation panic time, but I think the Chiefs kind of felt like we can beat the Giants without Worthy. Not that we don't need him, but it's just, I think they figured like, hey, we can get through this game. We can take care of business and win this game and then hopefully get him back against the Ravens. Even against the Ravens, I just wasn't expecting Worthy to be fully inserted back into the offense in like a full capacity. I was kind of anticipating realistically there would be like a snap count, like a pitch count on him. I was thinking maybe they would use him as a decoy in some plays, merely just having his presence out there. From the very first play on offense, Mahomes went right to Worthy, and I think it was some kind of like a screen, a bubble screen or something like that. They showed no hesitation and went right to him. And I think that set the tone for really the rest of the game, that like the Chiefs were going to go full attack mode. Of course, I was a little bit cautiously like worried. I don't want to see Worthy get hurt again, re-aggravate anything. The word was that he was wearing some kind of a brace or a harness for that, dislocated shoulder, but he looked good. He looked great. I mean, he hasn't lost a step. It's not like he suffered a leg injury. It was really a freak accident. routes that collided with Kelsey, and he dislocated his shoulder. It's kind of like just the bad luck, I think, that happened with Hollywood Brown in the very first preseason game last season. The speed is back. The speed is still very much there with Worthy. There was some kind of an end around play. I want to say it was second quarter where, at least watching on TV, he came down the left side, and it was very similar to his first touchdown in the week 1 opener last year against the Ravens, also at Arrowhead, where they did very similar play, end around. It was coming the other way, going down to the right, but he scored his first touchdown on that. It was like a 20-some yard run, and that's when you saw the blazing speed where, kind of like Tyreek Hill, but in a little bit of a different way, Worthy with these like jet sweeps and end around plays. Like, man, when he kicks it into gear and he gets around the edge and then he just turns it upfield, I mean, you just see him really blazing through that first and second level of opposing defenses, and he's able to get into the secondary. And I like that on at least 2 plays from what I can recall on Sunday, he approaching the sideline, he just ran out of bounds. He didn't try to take any unnecessary contact and risk, potential injury. So I think that was really smart of him coming back from an injury, in week 1. So, would I say that he's like back and better than ever? I mean, I guess so. I don't really know. I mean, maybe you can say that. This is only his second year, but Worthy stepped up a lot last year when Rice went down. He had to mature a lot faster than the Chiefs were anticipating, given his role and being a rookie last year. So that was actually very key to his development and progress in the NFL. Now that he is the number 1 receiver until Rice comes back, and while Worthy was out, us continuing to work in and have contributions from guys like Kelsey, Juju, Hollywood Brown, even though it was kind of a slog through the first couple of weeks to just push and grind through not having our top 2 guys, the emergence of Tyquan Thornton has really made this offense scary. And I think we really just saw the Chiefs offense scratching the surface last Sunday, because they got touchdowns to Juju, Hollywood Brown. Worthy didn't have one, but Tyquan Thornton had one, and then Pacheco had one. But with Worthy's speed, kind of like when we had Tyreek Hill, just absolutely terrifying defenses, and they're starting to play a lot further back, giving a lot more cushion. They're not playing press up on the line. That's just opening up all this underneath stuff, and they make it look easy with Kelsey, with Juju. We were able to get Brashard Smith, in addition to Pacheco, involved in the flats and out of the backfield, which was also really key. So yeah, with Worthy, there really wasn't a matter of what I anticipated, which was, they didn't ease him in. They just got him going right away. So it's good to see that he's really pretty much back at full strength. I don't know how long he's going to wear that harness for, how long it'll be required for, but as long as there's no future issues with his shoulder and he doesn't get banged up with that shoulder, I really am excited and looking forward to seeing Rice back with this offense in a couple of weeks, because I just think, kind of like the Chiefs offense really the last decade, when they've been at full strength and they have all the weapons, the sky's the limit. So that's what's really to look forward to. All right, so just to run through some notes that I had, just to kind of speed through a little bit of this. Worthy, he led the Chiefs offense last Sunday against the Ravens in both receiving and rushing. And the Chiefs didn't really have a whole lot of rushing. I don't have all the stats in front of me, but, and that's another thing I just wanted to kind of mention, is with this podcast, I don't get extremely into the X's and O's. I'm not really here to like break down film and talk super detailed schemes. I've been watching the Chiefs all my life, so I'd like to think I understand football pretty well. And I certainly understand quite a bit of terminology, but I also only played organized football for 2 years of my life, and that was 8th grade and senior year of high school. So there are going to be some limitations to like my breadth of knowledge and like capacity with those kinds of things, but I will speak technically at times. But I think more importantly, I just like to kind of talk about really just the overall, I think, vibes of the team, but get into those like opinions and debates and things like that. So with that said, the Chiefs, I don't have all the stats in front of me, but they I guess I might as well, but they didn't have like a huge ground presence. They definitely had some runs, especially as the day went on, where the ground game was definitely improving and helping to open up the pass game even more. But I think that just speaks to why Mahomes had 4 touchdowns on the day. I know he passed for over 200 yards. Xavier Worthy only had 2 carries on the ground, but he rushed for something like 32 carries for 38 yards. The Chiefs offense only had 118 yards on the ground. Mahomes only rushed for 4 times for 5 yards. So that's the other key. We know that Mahomes can run when needed, but he didn't really need to against the Ravens. And that was actually very beautiful to see. The Chiefs had a very clean pocket all day. The O-line played great. Very clean game. Limited penalties. That was also great to see. I'll get into that a little bit more later. You know, Brashard Smith chipped in. Kareem Hunt definitely had a pretty good workload. He carried the most, 13 times. Pacheco only had 7 carries for 35 yards. So the ground game wasn't huge. And even with the Ravens being decimated up front with injuries with their front 4 in the beginning of the game, they still did a pretty good job of limiting and stopping the Chiefs' ground attack. But I think the Chiefs had so much success through the air. They were like, we're just going to keep throwing the ball. They were blowing up that secondary. The Ravens, like I said, they have a lot of injuries, and I'll get into that more later, but the Chiefs took advantage through the air. And even when Xavier Worthy is not getting targeted or he's not getting the ball on a given play, having him back and his presence and the defenses, as we saw with the Ravens defense, having to respect him, I mean, you just saw, like, it's creating space for everybody else. And that's why I think it's kind of an interesting conversation that I've heard a lot with mainstream media, but also some of the local KC Chiefs podcasts and radio shows that I listen to. After Worthy got hurt and the Chiefs starting 0-2, and with some of the struggles that they still had against the Giants, I think a lot of people were, I don't want to say blaming, but the explanation for these limitations with the Chiefs offense is that, well, you don't have your top 2 receivers. And one of those guys that you don't have is arguably the fastest player in the league, maybe outside of Tyreek Hill, but maybe now he is the fastest, not just because Tyreek is injured, but also because Worthy ran the fastest combine time in NFL history. Worthy's speed is real, and so when you don't have that, I think defenses just knew with an aging Kelsey, the Chiefs can't really look deep. And so they're going to try to force everything shallow and underneath, hardly even intermediate routes. The Chiefs were trying to get everything going with quick hitters. But then when you had that emergence of Tyquan Thornton, then it's like things started to change a little bit. And they were taking more and more deep shots through the first 3 weeks. And Mahomes and Thornton were connecting on some of those too. But now with Worthy coming back and this unexpected deep ball emerging threat in Tyquan Thornton. And I shouldn't even really say unexpected, because I think as Chiefs fans, we saw it in training camp that Thornton was making some noise. But I'm not sure we expected to see it this fast early on. But that, again, points back to, well, if Worthy didn't get hurt, we probably wouldn't have. Now, in some ways, Worthy's injury is almost like a blessing in disguise, because similar to how Worthy had to grow up a lot faster than I think was expected of him last year when Rashee Rice went down. Well, Worthy goes down for 3 weeks, and Thornton had to essentially grow up himself as well, very, very, very quickly. And now it's like we have this offensive dynamic where, because Hollywood Brown is still fast, he might not be as fast as Thornton and Xavier, but Rashee Rice is fast as well, but he's definitely more of like the quick hitter, inside slant route, short, intermediate, curl, comeback kind of route runner that we depend on, the clear number 1 wide receiver, Mahomes' go-to. But when you have the speed of Worthy, Thornton, Hollywood Brown, and you add Rice back in a couple of weeks, and you've got Kelsey, and you can rotate in Juju, I mean, And then Brashard Smith is showing some definite optimism. I mean, this offense, I think, is going to be the scariest it's been in quite a few years. Easily since we lost Tyreek Hill, but I think since losing Tyreek Hill, forming a new offense with these weapons, I just think this is just going to open it up for everybody else, as everyone's been saying that. So really, really cool and inspiring to see. A lot of excitement around that. So yeah, that speed really is changing everything for the Chiefs, and in just the right time as we're really getting going with the season. We're now into October. You know, I think a lot of people have been very critical of the Chiefs' lack of explosiveness, but it's hard to be explosive if you're not going to have not only speed, but guys that can create that separation and actually get open. Mahomes looking deep again and a lot more often. It is stretching the field. I think we're going to see more and more too high safeties that are going to be scared to death of getting beat deep and over their heads. But I think that it's going to be tough for defenses to stop, because it's no longer kind of like how it used to be, where it was pretty much just like Tyreek, and then at one point it was kind of like Tyreek and McCole. But I think when you've got Worthy and Thornton, who have proven to be very reliable targets for Mahomes, he has a lot of trust in them to go over the top. That's going to be tough for defenses to stop. So if the O-line can keep protecting Mahomes, this is going to be a really, really great thing to continue to see developing. Switching gears a little bit and going to the run game. I don't really know if we have much of a running game identity. Pacheco is still clearly the starter, and he definitely ran a lot better against the Ravens. He had one dropped pass early on, but then from there, he definitely was finding the holes a lot better. He was reading the gaps better and being, I think, a little bit more decisive than he has been in the past couple of weeks. But Kareem, in my mind, is still the guy on short yardage situations, especially on 3rd and 4th down. And around the goal line, I also like just punching it in with Kareem Hunt. That's personally my belief on that. From what it sounds like, I am assuming that Elijah Mitchell is either just so low on the depth chart, or he's still dealing with injury. So he hasn't even been activated, I think, this season. But Brashard Smith, very, very quick. And I forget if he was a receiver in college and then he converted to running back in the pros, or vice versa. But he is, I think, a potential under the radar X factor kind of guy, where if we can work him in too, that's some more speed that we can, I think, stretch the field horizontally along the flats and out of the backfield. That could be definitely a sneaky, additional option for Mahomes, as we saw against the Ravens. I thought he played great given the opportunities that he was given. Yeah, I think through the first 3 weeks, it was pretty painful to watch the Chiefs trying to run the ball. They were getting stopped for a lot of no gains or very, 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 very short gains. Pacheco definitely wasn't running well, and I think there was a lot of chatter around Chiefs Kingdom of, has Pacheco kind of lost a step since coming back from breaking that leg last year? I know he finished the season, but it's just, did he maybe come back not quite the same? There's always that concern when you get injured. You're never going to be quite the same. Through 3 weeks, and especially when you start off 1-2, there's always going to be cause for concern. There's going to be grumblings, complaints. There's going to be a lot of negativity because things just aren't working. But the Chiefs clearly have a mantra and philosophy of progress and get better at little things here and there. And you have to struggle through the adversity. You have to push through the struggles and challenging times. And you can't just give up because you lose 2 games in a row to start the season and you started off with a losing record. Because all of a sudden we're now back to 500 and the Chiefs look like they could be one of the more dangerous teams heading into October. Still a lot of season left. I think there's a lot that we saw in the Ravens game that we can continue to build off of running the ball. I think similar to Pacheco's drop and some of the penalties that we've seen out of Jawan Taylor and like Harrison Butker missing kicks, it can be frustrating when you're watching in real time. But when you look at the game collectively, at least for Pacheco, he played a pretty good game going forward after that one drop. So I'm not going to harp on that too much. the O-line finally had a game where I think that they were definitely run blocking just a lot better. It's been kind of hard to tell for me watching the Chiefs run game struggle through the first 3 weeks. And again, against the Ravens, it wasn't like an explosive ground game, but they also didn't need it to be. But they definitely played a lot better collectively as a unit in that department than the first 3 weeks. It's been hard to tell. I've heard a mix of things. Part of me has kind of thought, is the Chiefs O-line just not winning in the trenches when they've been trying to run the ball? Were they missing assignments? Were they, just not blocking well and getting a push up front for Pacheco and Kareem Hunt? Or is it more a matter that they're actually doing their job just fine and Pacheco was not, like I mentioned earlier, like was he just not being decisive? Was he not having the same burst that he used to? Was he not finding the right hole, the right gap, reading the defense to get through? I don't really know. Against the Ravens, they definitely had a complementary running game to go along with their passing attack. So my only hope is that they can just continue to build, like I've been saying, like just keep building. Let's try to get this run game better and better. I believe in the guys that we have. I know with the trade deadline approaching, it'll be interesting to see, especially since Tyreek Hill is now out for the year. And not that the Chiefs were going to go and get him, but after Worthy's injury, it wasn't, to me, out of the question that they could be targeting someone like Tyreek Hill, especially with the Dolphins starting off the way that they have. But now, I don't really think receiver is going to be the issue. Knock on wood, but I don't foresee us needing to go get a receiver. We have plenty of depth there. Even behind Rashee Rice, once he comes back from suspension. In the running back room, I still believe in Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. And I like this Rashard Smith kid. We haven't seen Elijah Mitchell yet. I don't know if we will. I don't know if they try to go after a veteran running back to add to that depth. No matter which route they go, if they can continue improving the running game, that's just going to add to the balance and the complementary aspect to the offense to accompany the passing game. It's like the defense. When the defense plays really well and gives the offense chances, and when the offense can convert in the red zone and score touchdowns, the defense is playing better and better. Aside from like the kicking game, some offensive consistency and just converting, not having stalled drives, if the running game can just be a little bit more of that backbone that we can rely on, the Chiefs offense is just going to get better and better. So that's still one of like the weaker areas of their game. And it's not as much of an emphasis as the passing game is, but I think you always need to have a run game. Otherwise, you are one-dimensional. Hopefully, the Chiefs can continue to improve on the run game. So we already kind of talked about Rashard Smith a little bit, kind of a newer weapon, someone who doesn't have as much tape on them at the NFL level for opposing defenses. So that's why I think Rashard Smith can kind of be a sneaky option that sort of like Tyquan Thornton, not many defenses were expecting him to emerge coming out of Worthy's injury. I think Tyquan Thornton and Rashard Smith can be some cool, under the radar, sneaky weapons and options for this offense for Mahomes going forward. Rashard Smith definitely had a couple of plays where it wasn't just his speed that impressed me, but he was even breaking some tackles. There was a play along the sideline where he slipped through like 4 Ravens defenders, somehow stayed in bounds, picked up a first down, busted out a spin move. Like, that was really, really cool to see. I think it just kind of speaks to like when people talk about football being like a game of chess. This is just another piece. Rashard Smith adds a piece for Andy Reid to find, I think, really creative ways to utilize him. Andy Reid has famously installed and deployed some plays here and there over the last several years where even if you're not a Chiefs fan, you're like, whoa, like what was that play design? Like, where did they pull that out from? Like, how did they come up with that? So I can see Rashard Smith being one of those guys that can be sort of like a gadget player, and you could line him up anywhere you want on either side of the formation. He can be in the backfield. He seems like a dual threat kind of running back receiver, like hybrid type of addition that we've gotten. Great draft pick by Veach. Pretty sure he went to SMU. These guys, in addition to Rice, keep coming from SMU. They've got speed, so I'm loving it. So yeah, defenses don't have a whole lot of film on him just yet. Same with Tyquan Thornton. And this is just continuing to add to these multi-dimensional elements that the Chiefs have on offense. Yeah, I think Brashard Smith kind of makes the 1-2 punch of Kareem and Pacheco and that rotation more dangerous. All good things there. I don't really think I need to talk too much about Travis Kelce this week. I thought he played a great game. He made some great catches for Mahomes. I think the thing that I am most proud of Kelce is just, I think as a leader and one of the older vets on the team, and I say this pretty much every week, this is like presumably his farewell tour final season. I was talking with my dad about this. Like I don't think any Chiefs fans really want to see Kelce overdo it at the end of his career. I know that he wanted to come back after the way things ended in last year's Super Bowl and end on a high note. You just don't want there to be like grumblings of like fans and like the team actually like wanting you gone at some point if you're like more of a liability than an asset and valuable at some point. I still think Kelce's great. I think he understands his role. And I think on the team, just as a leader, and it helps when, the Chiefs were just in complete control. So a game like that, of course, he's going to be all smiles. There's not really going to be tension and like arguing, shouting with Andy Reid or other teammates on the sidelines. But I just think if Kelce, throughout the season, ups and downs, if he can just keep his composure and emotions in check and really live how I think Andy Reid has tried to preach to the team, don't get too high, don't get too low, I think that is going to pay off in the end, because it's going to show that even when things are down, you don't panic. You don't let the rest of the team see that there's kind of panic. And same thing with winning. I think Kelce is a lot better of a winner than I think he is a loser. I think when the Chiefs are winning, Kelce is, he's all smiles, but he still like knows, yeah, that's a win, but there's many more games to be played. We've won Super Bowls. We're not going to act like Nick Sirianni when we win a game and act like a clown and a child. But when we lose or when things are tough, I know that a lot of it is like passion and fire and it's just competitiveness. But I think once in a while seeing him get into it with a teammate or with Andy Reid, that's one thing. But I don't really want to see that like week to week. So it was nice having a game overall that was like not stressful against the Ravens and just a game that was pretty drama-free, and we didn't have to see him and Andy Reid or him and anyone else get into it. And God forbid, we have not seen Kelce and Mahomes ever get into it. So again, knock on wood, but I don't want to see that, of course. I think during the Giants game, the one thing I did like about the Andy Reid Travis Kelce interaction was opposite of what happened in the 2023 Super Bowl 58. In that exchange, Kelce was the one that bumped Andy Reid on the sidelines. And that was like, whoa, Kelce, like, you got to watch out. And Andy Reid kind of returned the favor in New York. He was the one that bumped Kelce. So I liked seeing Andy Reid check Kelce there. I think that was needed. So maybe some things kind of got sorted out with that interaction. And really, since the second half of the Giants game, the Chiefs have played, about 5 to 6 pretty clean quarters, I would say, of football. All right, so anything else on Travis Kelce? Yeah, there was a great pass that Mahomes had to Kelce. It was just Mahomes kind of lofted with some nice precision and touch, like a real finesse kind of a throw. Just kind of lofted a nice little floater to Kelce that I think after catching that, it was a first down. Kelce actually went like this on his helmet. And I think because if he was able to catch that, he caught it in stride, but he got tripped up by the defender trailing him in the secondary. If he didn't get tripped up, he's older. Not saying that he would have been able to run for the touchdown, but there was a pretty wide open lane between a cornerback trying to catch up from behind and a safety that Kelce probably could have taken that a lot further, at least closer to the end zone. But that was a great play between them two. Yeah, no blow-ups last game with Kelce. I know in his final year, that's probably why he's been so heated the first 3 weeks. Like, he's really trying to bring that sense of urgency, intensity, fire, and truly rage to this team. I just think simmer it down, take a breath, like realize we're still early on in the season, but I get where he's coming from. So I can't fault him too much with that. But yeah, Kelce otherwise is like he's doing his job. He's playing his role. From time to time, I know he still kind of drops a ball here and there. As long as he's not really doing stuff like that and he's just doing his part, no fumbles either. Kelce at this point in his career, let the younger guys, I think, carry the load. Kelce just chip in here and there, get a few catches, some touchdowns in the red zone. That's really what we need from Kelce, and just veteran leadership. Yeah, I think overall the Chiefs' offense is starting to come together pretty nicely. Interestingly enough, in the win over the Ravens, Matt Reza only needed to punt once all game, and that didn't come until the fourth quarter. Didn't have a whole lot of penalties. I think there were only 4 or 5, and from what I can recall, there might have only been like one false start or holding on the offense, 1 or 2 at most. Jawan Taylor, I don't think I heard his name called all day, which is perfect. No illegal procedure penalties. When he plays a clean game, this is why he's a starter. He's still a good offensive tackle, but when he doesn't play a clean game, that's when everything gets put under a magnifying glass with him. So as long as he continues to execute and play clean football, like this offense is going to thrive and just get rolling. They just can't have anything holding them back. That is going to be the key. Clean execution, far and away the best overall offensive performance, obviously, out of the entire start to this season. So it was a pretty interesting month of September, but we went 500 in the month of September, so a great way to end the month and head into October. I think from month to month, if you can just try to get through and play better and better football, I like the direction that we're going. So with 2 more games to go on the schedule, Jaguars and Lions, I believe, until Rashee Rice comes back, I think this is about as good of a spot as you could have hoped for. And what's funny is the Chiefs really put themselves in a position to win both the Chargers and the Eagles game. Against the Chargers, did they really deserve to win that game? No. Were they also thrown just a huge curveball with Worthy's injury off a freak accident type of a play? Yes. But they put themselves in a chance to actually have an opportunity to win that game. And against the Eagles, they were hanging with them and kind of going punch for punch, really. And just a mistake is really the only reason that they are 2-2 instead of potentially 3-1 or 4-0. On the defensive side of the ball, shout out and prayers to Chris Jones and his family. That was actually the first that I had learned, probably like a lot of Chiefs fans. Sunday afternoon, just before the game, like literally minutes before the game, is when they broke that story on CBS about Chris Jones and the passing of his aunt, him being down in Mississippi where he's from to attend the funeral. So that was really sad to hear. He played a great game, and the defense, really the whole team, I think, rallied around him, and that was just a really cool, emotional thing to see. So, prayers out to Chris Jones and his family. I think anybody in life which is pretty much most of us, anyone who's ever lost somebody, I can't imagine, what that last week and really few days was like for him to go down for the funeral and then the day of fly back and I don't know if he was able to really attend warm-ups or he was, late to warm-ups, but he still started and, played a heck of a game. So really, really cool to see that. And just the family, the brotherhood aspect of just the Chiefs as a team and Kansas City as a community. So really, really cool there. Yeah, and defensively, I think I don't really focus too much on the opening drive. Last year, week 1 playing the Ravens, they also scored on their opening drive when we had a chance to stop them on a 3rd down. Pretty much the same thing happened last Sunday. Spags and the defense, like they made their adjustments and they played a heck of a game from there on out. They really in total only gave up, I would say actually 10 points to the Ravens, because I put the final field goal to end the half for Baltimore, I put that on the Chiefs offense, putting the defense in a bad position with a stalled drive and then missing a field goal. So the Ravens pretty much had the ball to start around where Lamar Jackson had fumbled to give the Chiefs possession, around the 2-minute warning. And then the last touchdown the Ravens scored was Garbage time touchdown, of course. Really only 13 points, allowed for 3.5 quarters of play, and then the Ravens get a meaningless garbage time touchdown to end the game. But Andy Reid, Spags, that entire defense, no one really wants to see even a garbage time touchdown like that when you had some backups, but you also had some of your starters in there. But, it's whatever. I think Spags did a really good job sending pressure, putting guys in good positions to make plays. Leo Chanel had a hell of an interception. I don't know if that's... I kind of feel like that might be his first interception of his career, but I am probably wrong about that. But it's not often that you see Leo Chanel making an interception. So, and pretty much one-handed. Like, he was able to bat it one-handed to himself, and that's why Spags will put linebackers on tight ends and, other guys coming out of the backfield, out of the flat area. Chanel did a great job of turning his head around. That just goes to show, as the defender in today's NFL, if you get your head around, you can make a play on the ball. If you don't get your head around, you're going to get called for pass interference because you're going to run into the receiver early, or you're just not going to know the ball's even coming, and then the receiver makes a catch. Great interception, pressuring Lamar when he fumbled. He actually bumped into his own lineman and fumbled the ball, but that pressure, collapsing the pocket, forcing him, with disruption to be uncomfortable, and he was trying to scramble. 2 Lamar turnovers. We didn't even need a Derrick Henry fumble to have any more success. So great game by the defense. They were able to get some pressure and get a couple of sacks. 3 sacks for the Chiefs defense, only 1 for the Ravens. 37-20 win. There's always still room to grow. The important thing is, from weeks 1 to 4, the Chiefs have just continued to build and get better. While some parts of the Giants game were definitely pretty sloppy and ugly, really not a great first half, a horrible second quarter, every game they've been finishing the game better. They started off a lot better against the Ravens. They only managed 2 field goals until really starting to get going late in the second quarter, but down 7-6, the Chiefs very much in the game, just had to get going with converting field goals into touchdowns. To that point, the red zone offense, the efficiency still needs some work. It's really just a matter of they need to finish off drives. They just need to capitalize, convert those field goals into touchdowns. Mahomes always talks about that. Bucker, even though he missed one, he went 3 for 4. He was perfect in extra points. At least he made most of his field goals. In a game where you still put up 37 points, I think even if the Ravens played slightly better, the Chiefs still would have won that game. If the Chiefs are scoring more touchdowns than some of those field goals, you're looking at the Chiefs are hanging 40, maybe even 50 points in that game. Red zone efficiency, we still need some improvement there, but they did a lot better of a job second quarter on. Speaking of Butker's kicking struggles, I don't really know if it's like mental. I don't know if it's like a mechanical thing. I don't know if it's related to just some of the injuries he's had in the past and his body not quite being the same. I don't know if it's because, for whatever reason, when it's not a clutch kick, when it's like a gimme, when it's a makeable field goal, something he's made from before, and look, like a 58-yarder, that's still a really far field goal. But when you see him make those, you just kind of expect it. So when he misses, it's just kind of like, wonder what happened there. I haven't seen anything in terms of like bad snaps, bad holds. So I don't know what it is, but I'm just appreciative that at least this is happening early in the season. So I have confidence that Bucker will clean it up and he'll start to improve, and he'll kind of get on a roll as we keep going here. He's still making the clutch kicks. It would be more worrisome if he were like starting to miss a lot of field goals when we're starting to get into the colder weather. That would be more alarming. That's not happening. So I'm really not that concerned. I would like to see one game here soon, hopefully this week, where he's just perfect on the day. And then if it is a miss, that it's like a really challenging field goal, like maybe there's some weather involved, that kind of thing. I believe in him. Hopefully it's just something where maybe mentally he just kind of needs to get right. coinciding with Butker's one and only miss of the day against the Ravens. The Chiefs' offense didn't do a very good job capitalizing off of Lamar's fumble. I forget if they had some penalties or what, but their drive stalled out just barely into Ravens territory, so that had to set up a Butker 58-yard attempt. And just the clock management wasn't very good. I think the Ravens got the ball back with 2 timeouts. I think the Chiefs easily should have burned some time and made the Ravens take 2 timeouts. And just not being able to go down and get any points out of that, not being able to end the half with the ball, knowing you get the ball in the second half. I would have just preferred to see them at least waste the Ravens' timeouts, run the clock down, whether you miss or make the field goal, leave the Ravens with limited time and no timeouts, make it harder on them, because they went down with these because we were playing conservative defense, not wanting to give up a touchdown, and we basically let them score a field goal to end the half. So end of the half, a mix of clock management, but also just converting off of and capitalizing off of a turnover, little things like that, we can continue to clean up. And I think going off of that in the second half, we were still scoring touchdowns and everything was great, but I think the Chiefs definitely had some opportunities to put the game away even earlier. And I know Lamar Jackson got hurt in this game and left in the third quarter, and Mahomes eventually got benched and replaced by Gardner Minshew because we were up by so much that Mahomes didn't need to continue playing along with other starters. That's all fine. I just think even before that point, this could have been a game where we put up 40 and Gardner Minshew probably could have played like the entire fourth quarter. I would like to see the Chiefs go for the kill shot, go for the jugular a little bit earlier on. Kind of like what the Eagles did against us in the Super Bowl. Like when you have your moments, really try to take those shots in and put the game away early. Knockout blows, that's just another area where I think we can improve. So last 3 topics, there's been a lot of talk since the win that some people are like, oh, the Chiefs offense is back. And, like this is the Chiefs of old. And does everyone really trust that? Was this more of like a Chiefs dominant win? Or was this also asterisk next to the fact that the Ravens had so many players missing? They were super banged up, decimated really across the team, a lot of injuries. It is true, the Ravens were banged up. To say that it's not like a fair fight, nobody in the NFL world has felt bad for the Chiefs that Rashee Rice had to start the year off suspended, that Worthy got hurt on like the 3rd play of the game against the Chargers, and we didn't have him for the first 3 weeks. No one felt bad for us. No one felt bad that like Mahomes can't be protected. Like if he could just be protected, if he has weapons. There are never any excuses in professional sports. No one's going to feel bad that the Ravens now might not have Lamar Jackson. The Ravens were super banged up on the defensive side of the ball. Like no one's going to feel bad or pity those things because at the end of the day, every team has backups and has depth, and those guys are professionals too. They also get paid. Next man up is always the mentality. It's always next guy has to step up, and you've got to figure things out when you lose some of your star players and your starters. The difference is the Ravens have ended up 1-3. The Chiefs are surviving at 2-2 through some of this tougher stretch. Yeah, the Ravens did not step up and execute. They didn't play a good game. The Chiefs did execute and take care of business, and they played a phenomenal game. That's just what it comes down to, really. I don't believe that you can discredit a win like that because the Ravens are, they at least entered the game still a top legitimate AFC, contender. I think there's just still a lot of Chiefs hate out there where a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, the Chiefs played the best out of any team on Sunday throughout the league, but there's always a but. The Ravens weren't at full strength. When the Chiefs and Eagles played each other, the Chiefs didn't have Worthy and they still played a hell of a ball game. I think the Eagles might have been missing some guys as well, but every week in the NFL, there are always going to be guys missing. It's pretty rare that you come across a game where like every team is at full strength against one another. Even if 2 teams were at full strength, one team could still blow the other team out. So just looking ahead, I kind of want to put a lid on week 4 and the Ravens game, the win against the Ravens. Looking ahead, I think the Chiefs' arsenal is really loading right now. We get Rashee Rice back in 2 games, but until then, we're going to look ahead to Jacksonville. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the most wild stats that I heard, I think it was from KCSN, one of their podcasts. Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and Travis Kelce have never been on the field together for a single snap. Last year, Hollywood Brown was hurt for most of the season. Rice went down and Hollywood Brown eventually came back. It was really just him, Worthy, and Kelce. But then you also had Juju. But in terms of speed, I would actually argue that, yes, Kelce on the field, great too. But if you could have Rice, Worthy, Brown, and Tyquan Thornton, holy smokes. Talk about a track meet. Once we get that full arsenal of weapons, as I've been saying, the offense can really be unstoppable. I think the only ones that can really stop them are themselves. They're going to play some tough defenses, they already have, but I think this offense is just going to continue to get stronger. We've got a great test coming up, Monday Night Football at Jacksonville. My wife and I actually have some friends who are Jaguars fans. They're great fans. There's not going to be any chirping. There's probably just going to be good luck and good game, but it's going to be a good game. The Jags look pretty good so far. They're 3-1, but I also just, based on their schedule, I don't think that they've been quite as tested yet like the Chiefs have. That's the only thing, is I think the Chiefs have just that experience edge and just the battle testedness even of just a month of football so far. I also think the Chiefs they shine bright when they play in these primetime games. It's going to be a good battle. Final thoughts. I think we're starting to see just tip of the iceberg, the level of offensive production that we've really been hoping for and excited about since training camp talks earlier in the year, and it's only going to get better. Again, knock on wood, hopefully no one else gets hurt. Once Rice comes back, I think we're just going to be full steam ahead. So I'm excited about that. We are coming off back-to-back wins. We're back to 500, 2-2, entering week 5. And I really think that we've built a solid foundation over the last couple of weeks, enduring some of these struggles and challenging times. We've got a lot of talent there. It's just, we have to just keep moving as a unit and keep progressing, getting better each week. The NFL, Rex Ryan on ESPN says it all the time. The NFL is a week-to-week league, a week-to-week business. We didn't have a great game against the Giants, but we still got a win. We had an excellent game against the Ravens, got a very nice win. Against the Jaguars, both teams coming off wins, but you never really know what you're going to get in the NFL week to week. So the Chiefs just have to keep playing good football. Just have to try to continue to be consistent from here on out after starting off a little slow. Overall, yeah, I am optimistic. That is going to do it. Recapping week 4 and looking ahead to week 5 of Win or Lose Chiefs News Podcast. I am Alex Liu. You are watching my YouTube channel, A-Lu2 Productions. Feel free to also check out my blog, Win or Lose Chiefs News on WordPress. I will leave a link in the description. Subscribe to my channel. Please, please, please leave a like, comment, share, follow me on Instagram. And I would love to hear comments from any Chiefs fans who come across this podcast, whether you live in Kansas City or if you are an out-of-market, out-of-town fan such as myself, whether you are spread out across the nation, if you're in the DMV, or if you are worldwide, globally. Would love to hear from you. Let's go Chiefs. Let's get another win at the Jags in week 5, and I will see you guys all next time. Go Chiefs.
We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Say you don't know me, I recognize my face. Say you don't care who goes to that kind of place. Knee deep in the hoopla, sinking in your fight. Too many runaways, eating up the night. Marconi plays the mamba. Listen to the radio. Don't you remember? We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. We built this city. We built this the stage.